All right, the Fusion Firearms Freedom Series of 1911s. This is the reaction model to be specific, and this is part 3 in a series of videos that I have done on this gun. We are well over 1,000 rounds. If you want to watch parts 1 and 2, please feel free to go back and do so. If you just want to play catch up from here, you can just watch this, get my final synopsis, and call it a day. So in this video, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to tell you my final thoughts on this gun. Is it worth the buy? That's the biggest thing, because I did spend my money on this hoping to get an affordable but excellent 1911, and the question is, did I or did I not? I'll answer that, as well as I had a couple of issues along the way, and what were the resolutions or lack thereof to those issues. We'll talk about that as well. But first, let's just do a brief overview of the gun if you're not familiar. This is a 5-inch government model 1911. It's a 70 series. It has a black oxide finish on the gun. It has front and rear cocking serrations. It also has an HD chrome barrel. It has a fiber optic front sight and a blacked out rear on there. It also has a pretty standard magazine release. It comes with one Metgar magazine that works quite well. It has your grip safety as well as your extended safety that is quite positive. It does have a very sharp edge on the safety though, and it's starting to leave a nice little callus in the middle of my thumb, but perhaps I'm just a huge baby when it comes to that. There's also this, a recessed, slide stop slide release there, which is very nice because it leaves this totally smooth. It says reaction on the frame right there, but it doesn't brand it across the length of the slide. Thank you, Fusion. It also has red Cocobolo grips. Whoops. Front strap checkering, which is not as common for guns in this price range, and then some vertical striations here on the back. Overall, yielding a very, very nice grip on the gun when you're shooting. It's a great, great shooter, which we'll get to. But first, let's talk about the issues. The first issue, if you've watched any of the previous videos, you know that when I would finish shooting and maybe I would just rack it like this, it's totally empty, it's safe, and I would pull the trigger and dry fire it, the firing pin, let's see, would be stuck in the forward position, and you're not gonna be able to see in there. Maybe. Nope. Yep, the firing pin would be stuck forward, however. If you wanna see that, go watch the very beginning of the second video that I made on this gun. The firing pin would actually be stuck protruding through the breech face. And I actually watched a really interesting video lately by Yankee Marshall about slam fires, and it's usually caused, he said, by a firing pin being stuck in the forward position. So I was like, wow, that's way more dangerous than I thought. However, I reached out to Fusion, which I've talked about to this point. They said, we'll send you out the new parts. They sent me out a new firing pin and firing pin spring. I popped them in the gun. It is working flawlessly at this point. I haven't had any more issues with that. I will say, however, I'm about to throw up a picture on the screen. Side by side, you will see on the left-hand side the old firing pin, the original firing pin. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the new firing pin. And then you'll probably think to yourself, those look a little bit different. And that was the same reaction that I had, because they're not the same firing pin. And I don't know why that is. I'm glad that they're different because the new one works, it functions correctly, but you'll also notice something peculiar about the original firing pin, and that is that little ring in the center there. It's like a deformation of the metal. And so I'm thinking about it more, and it makes me think that that might be what's catching on the front and causing it to stick. But why would it have deformed over time? That doesn't necessarily make sense. And it's not a good thing. But anyhow, I also saw this thick cosmoline-esque oil or lubricant or protectant in there on those parts, the firing pin and the firing pin spring. And full disclosure, that was on many of the parts. That was on the barrel, that was on some other parts of the gun when I first got it. And it is. I've seen videos from the manufacturers saying that it comes with this stuff on it, it's to protect it. Lots of gun manufacturers do that. You just wipe it down and you're good to go. However, my thought is, if it's actually in the firing pin channel and on those specific parts, the firing pin and the firing pin spring, that could potentially cause it to, you know, glob up and actually stay forward like that. So, needless to say, I have replaced them. They do work fine. However, you know, if you do buy this gun, definitely take a look at your firing pin and see, compared to this picture up here and that I flashed earlier, and make sure that you've got a good firing pin. And if you do have any issues, this is the good news, right? The good news is that we have a great story about customer service here. They offer a limited lifetime warranty on this gun, and I reached out to them with an issue and they honored that warranty and said, yeah, let's fix whatever the problem is, okay? So that's a great customer service experience. It's not necessarily one that I want to have, because I would prefer that everything just worked flawlessly right out of the box. But at the same time, they stood by it, they fixed the issue, no harm, no foul, okay? Now, in terms of the shooting, you'll remember that around the 350 mark, I had malfunctions. And I was attributing those in the last video to oil. I was saying, well, I hadn't oiled the gun to that point, except for a little bit at the very beginning. Maybe it just needed some oil, and that's why it was tripping up. And I put some oil in there, and then it shot flawlessly the rest of the time for the next 200 rounds. And I was like, that's the issue. It's solved. It's just the oil. Well, not the case. I was wrong on that, and I'll tell you about that. So I kept shooting. I put more Cellier and below ammo through it, and then around the 700 to 900 mark, I started using the Federal Champion brass ammo again, and lo and behold, I started having the same dang issue. So I started going back through my sort of like ammo log, where I was putting the different kinds that I was shooting and what round counts those were at. And the malfunctions were happening with the Federal Champion brass the first time around too. And I know I had mentioned the Brown Els mags being the one. It was all the mags, okay? This second time around, this mag, the metal form mag, this is the Metgar mag, every single one was tripping up with the Federal Champion brass, okay? And I know, because I've used it before, that some of those loads, the quality control on those is not that great, because I've had underpowered rounds before. I even had this time, and I didn't get a picture of this, I literally tossed the round before it occurred to me. I was like, no, I need a picture to show everyone a cartridge with a bullet sunk like halfway into the cartridge. So if like this is the cartridge and it would normally, the bullet would be here, it was like down here. And I don't know what would have actually happened if I had managed to chamber that and shoot it. It might have been a squib load or something like that. Not entirely sure. However, just be mindful if you're using that ammo. It is range ammo. Don't try using it for anything else. Don't trust it for home defense, God forbid carry, or anything like that, okay? It's ball 115 grain, and it's not even good ball 115 grain ammo. All right, so I put that together and realized that the malfunctions overlapped with the use of that specific ammo. And what happened was I immediately changed, grabbed a box of MagTech and some Blazer brass, put those through them, so 150 rounds of each. Those 100 rounds were perfect, then put 200 more of Cellier and below, or whatever it was. Those were all perfect. So 1,250 rounds total, and the only malfunctions have been with the Federal Champion brass. And I know there are going to be some people out there that say, you know what, I hear what you're saying, and that's great that it's been reliable otherwise, but I want something that works with everything. And if that's the case for you, I understand that, and I sympathize with that. I still really like this gun, okay? And maybe I'm biased and obligated to like it because I purchased it and I really want it to be great. But I love this gun, and the fact that it won't process that Federal Champion brass isn't a huge issue to me. In addition to the fact that I didn't end up pulling that lighter recoil spring and actually changing it and putting it in there to see if it would cycle with that lighter recoil spring. I didn't do that, and I still need to do that. But at my range, it's very public. You know, there are range officers. I didn't know if they would be okay with me just breaking down the gun and throwing in another recoil spring. Probably, but I just didn't want to deal with it as well. I was in the middle of shooting. I had a friend with me, so that's the story at this point. However, I can say this gun has been 100% reliable with every ammunition that I have used, all 5 or 6 others, with the exception of the Federal Champion brass ammo. Beyond that, I love this gun. It is a hell of a shooter. It's awesome. It makes me a better shooter. And I know that you all are gonna say, well, if you're a good shooter, if you're a proficient shooter, you can shoot well with anything. Any gun. And while I understand that, I would throw this back at you and say that is not entirely true. Some guns are going to allow you to shoot more easily than others. And I'll give you this analogy. What about golf? Have you ever looked at a couple of different sets of golf clubs or played with a couple of different sets of golf clubs? There's some that are more forgiving than others. There's some where if you go out there and you hit it even slightly wrong, you're gonna shank the ball. You're gonna hook it out like crazy, and it's gonna be terrible. Very much like there are guns that you can pick up that are going to be less forgiving, that you have to really be a master with in order to shoot well. This is not one of those. This gun is very forgiving, meaning that I can focus on other things, which is pretty cool. I thought it might spoil me, but it actually allowed me to focus on some other parts of my shooting proficiency that I really haven't been able to pay attention to because I was so concerned with trigger press and sight alignment and all these different things. So this gun is very forgiving, and it's an excellent shooter, and it's far more accurate than I will ever pretend to be, okay? It's awesome. And like I said, I paid $680 for this gun in end of June, July of 2019, okay? It MSRPs for $800. That puts it right smack dab, a little bit above the like GI Rock Island range, the Metro Arms, all of that. It's a little bit higher price than that. It also has a lot more features than those guns, okay? And from what I can tell, you know, with you getting a CNC machined from bar stock, slide, frame, barrel, I mean, I'm just obligated to say this is a great buy. That's it. It's a great buy.